Hello YouTube, my name is Octopus Joey, and it's been a while since I've done a comparison review. Ah! Alright, that works. I'm also kinda thirsty. Do I just have the ability to make physical objects appear when it's convenient for me? Because if so, I need to tell someone about that. Ah! What good is this supposed to do me?
Joey! The prophecies or whatever say that someone on YouTube who no one has ever heard of will one day receive the power to make things appear to him when convenient. And the fact that I'm on your TV against my will suggests to me that you're the chosen one.
Neat. It would be convenient if you were on that green screen that I haven't used in like 2 years.
Happy now?
Wait a second, it would be really convenient for me if you were here in person.
Are you kidding me? Plane tickets are expensive. Plus, I'm not wearing pants.
It was worth a try. So how's it going?
I'm alright, except for, this. How about you?
Pretty good. You want to compare these two games with me?
Sure, I have some time to kill.
Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy are both 3D collectathon platformers. In Super Mario Sunshine, you collect shine sprites and blue coins, and in Super Mario Galaxy, you collect stars. Let's talk about the stories. For Mario games, they're actually not that bad.
Super Mario Sunshine may have one of the most unique stories for a Mario game. At first. It starts off very different from other Mario games, and it even tricks you into thinking that this game is going to be essentially Mario doing community service. This doesn't last long though, because Peach is stolen. And then guess what? Community service and saving princesses. Woohoo! The formula works! Who needs originality?
It's nice to see something a little different, but when you get right down to it, it's the same story as almost every Mario game, but with some stuff added to it.
I'm not trashing Super Mario Galaxy's story per se, I just think that it really boils down to this. Super Mario in space! And that's it. It introduces Rosalina, who people have come to love even though she has about as much personality as a potato, but other than that, what else does it do? Mario has officially gone from saving kingdoms, lands, worlds, and now to galaxies. You know what, that sounds a lot better when said out loud, so maybe my point's invalid.
I like Super Mario Galaxy's story more than Super Mario Sunshine's because there's a little more depth to the characters. Unlike in other Mario games, Mario actually seems motivated to rescue the princess. But in other games, he just looks so indifferent, like, yeah, I'll save her. If you move the analog stick in the right direction, whatever. And Bowser actually feels like a threat, while in other Mario games, he's more of an annoying pest than anything. Super Mario Sunshine's story is really silly, but it does have some progression going for it. In Galaxy's case, I think it's the presentation of the story that really makes it, rather than the story itself. Still, I'd say Galaxy has the better story. The controls in both games are really good, but they're not perfect. In Super Mario Galaxy's case, the main things holding it back are the motion controls. They're usually not bad, but there are instances such as the rolling ball and the mantis surfing levels where I'd say they're terrible. In Super Mario Sunshine's case, the only thing really holding the controls back is the weird hit detection.
The controls for both games are just fine, however there are a few specific things to note. Before I can get to that, I want to mention that Super Mario Sunshine and Galaxy have taken the pretty solid controls from Super Mario 64 and pretty much perfected them. Doing flips and running around as Mario is one of the greatest feelings in these games. This is how a 3D platformer should feel, and when it's coupled with FLUDD, it's amazing. There are so many different possibilities for flips in Sunshine, and this is kind of what I want to compare. These games' gimmicks and how they affect the game. The FLUDD gimmick is very abundant in the game because it's there the whole time. You can do multiple things with FLUDD, like spray enemies, use it to help you platform over difficult areas, and even fling yourself into the air like a rocket. But here's the deal, it never necessarily feels intrusive. There's never a point in the game where I feel like using FLUDD breaks the immersion. To me, it's not as much of a gimmick as it was a necessity, because it mixes so well with design.
FLUDD enhances Super Mario Sunshine's controls a lot. It makes for a really fun control scheme and opens up tons of level design possibilities. Honestly, I'd love to see FLUDD come back in another Mario game as a power-up.
Super Mario Galaxy has sort of a less involved gimmick, and with that said, I don't like it nearly as much. It's the spin jump. You use it by waving around the controller, and I personally can't stand motion controls, but these ones I'm okay with. I don't love them, but I also can't say that I hate them. They're fine, but I find that shaking the controller every now and again does feel a little intrusive. Also, this exact same kind of move was used in Super Mario World by just pressing a button, and guess what? That works just fine. You know what? Maybe I do hate these motion controls.
Shaking the Wii Remote is less responsive than pressing a button. It still feels pretty responsive, but it just feels less responsive. Probably because you have to make a complete arm motion rather than just moving your thumb slightly. All our complaints about the motion controls could have been fixed just by adding GameCube controller support. But you know how Nintendo is, that would get in the way of the fun of making your arms sore.
There's also something about these games that I feel we should talk about. Now, I've heard both really positive things about this topic, and for the most part, I completely disagree. The cameras in both games. Super Mario Sunshine's camera is so willy-nilly, and it drives me crazy. Now, I've heard that people prefer it to Super Mario 64's, and I couldn't disagree more. While Super Mario 64's camera controls aren't really anything worth writing home about, at the very least, it has its limits. If you can't move it to a specific area, it says okay, and then you deal with what you have. Super Mario Sunshine's camera is fine and dandy with just clipping through walls. There are no limits, and you just gotta deal with it. This wouldn't be so much of an issue if the camera would just listen to you. I'll often get to a point where I'll set the camera where I want it, and then I'll use FLUDD, and then the camera will decide to pan left or right. Stop it, you're making my decisions for me! Super Mario Galaxy has a better camera in some ways because it does seem to understand its limits, and it positions itself at helpful places. That said, because of the nature of the game, I have to continuously adjust the camera, and not just this, but you always have to adjust how you move. It's a little overly complicated, but with that said, it still makes sense.
I find both games' cameras to be pretty stubborn, but in different ways. Sunshine gives you more freedom at first, but then the camera just moves back when you start using FLUDD. With Galaxy, it's oddly selective whether or not you can move the camera to the angle you want. I still prefer Sunshine's camera though. Now, while the gravity mechanic in Super Mario Galaxy is really cool, the controls can be a little disorienting when you're upside down. In fact, they're a little inconsistent, causing you to have to readjust at times, which isn't a huge problem. But while the gravity mechanic opens up a lot of possibilities, it also makes the controls feel a little more restricted in some ways, especially compared to the way Sunshine lets you move around so freely. Both games control well, but Sunshine definitely controls better. The graphics in both games are really good, but Galaxy makes the most of the Wii's hardware, which is really impressive since this game came out only a year after the Wii was released. Sunshine's graphics look really good, and the setting really adds to it. Seriously, all the levels are beautiful, and I especially love that they're all connected. Galaxy doesn't really have a consistent setting. Different galaxies look really different, but they do all have a space theme, which is really cool.
I feel like Super Mario Sunshine is the first beautiful Mario game. It's absolutely stunning to look at, and its style sticks out. There's a certain charm to it that other 3D Mario games seem to lack. Super Mario Galaxy is definitely stylized, but it doesn't have the same kind of flair that Sunshine has. It's hard to describe because I can't exactly put my finger on it, but everything about Sunshine's visual presentation is great. Mario's sleeves are rolled up, the water looks wonderful, the fact that the overworld gets brighter with every shine that you earn, and even the Piantas. Look at them, aren't they delicious?
I always thought Piantas looked kinda like fruits, which raises the question, if you ate a Pianta, would it taste like meat or fruit? Also, why do they have trees on their heads?
Not to say that Super Mario Galaxy in any shape or form looks bad. I mean, technically it looks better. Although I do think that it kinda looks plasticky. But it still looks amazing. Take the opening sequence for example. When I first saw this, my head almost exploded. This is what we were looking forward to when it came to the Wii? Sign me up! Too bad almost nothing else on the Wii looks this good. So my overall thoughts is that Sunshine and Galaxy's graphics both look great for their respective systems, although I feel like Sunshine's are more stylized while Galaxy's simply looks better.
I agree. Both games have fantastic graphics, but Galaxy's graphics are just more polished and more impressive. Super Mario Sunshine's soundtrack is a little repetitive. Similarly to Super Mario World and Super Mario 64, it reuses the same melody part in most of its tracks. Also similarly to Super Mario World, it's always remixed to set a more appropriate tone, but I still can't help but see it as a little lazy. However, there are a lot of original tracks such as Noki Bay, Serena Beach, and Peanut Park. Peanut Park is pretty cool.
I'll admit something. When I first played Super Mario Sunshine, I hated it. There were so many elements that made me absolutely despise the game. That is, except for the music. The music in Super Mario Sunshine is so good. I think that it's incredibly distinct when compared to other games in the series. It took a very beachy style, if that makes sense, using dull drums, guitars, and really wacky bass riffs. Also, I want to add that Isle Delfino's theme is one of my favorite tracks in Mario. It's also a great theme for the rest of the music to play off of. The music fits well within the settings given. The boss fights sort of come to mind. There's something kind of disorienting about the music that plays when a boss shows up, and it fits very well. There's also quite a bit of music in the game, with music for almost every situation. For example, cutscenes in the individual levels get pretty much their own tracks, Peanut Park getting more than one. This game is just filled to the brim with solid music.
Super Mario Galaxy's soundtrack is amazing. First of all, it's orchestrated, which is really cool. Second, almost every song fits in the level they're played in perfectly. And of course, almost every track sounds good.
There's nothing about Super Mario Galaxy's music that I really dislike. However, I also can't think of a lot of notable tracks. There's Dino Pacoon, which sounds like a mix of what we got from Super Mario Sunshine, and Pokemon, Honeybee Kingdom, which sounds like Donkey Kong, and what I think is the standout track, Wind Garden, which is flat out amazing. The entire soundtrack is solid though and really fits the theme of the game. Outer space! Just the menu theme does a good job at conveying this feeling. Also, the live orchestra definitely does a great job at making this sound quality be amazing. I do feel like the soundtrack at some points is a tad bit uninspired because they reused a lot of old Mario music. Some of it for the better, and some of it not so much. I just prefer a little bit more originality.
Wind Garden, or Gusty Garden Galaxy, is definitely a fan favorite in terms of Nintendo music, and Nintendo especially seems to be proud of it because they reuse parts of it in literally everything. Seriously, it's reused in the Purple Coins track, it's reused in Super Mario 3D World, it's abused to death in Super Mario Galaxy 2, and there's even a butchered version in Mario Kart 8. It almost seems like Nintendo's trying to ruin an amazing track. But then again, it usually seems that way with most great things Nintendo makes. As fantastic as that track is, I'd say the best song in the game is the one that plays in Battle Rock Galaxy. And the reason that I say that, other than that it's absolutely fantastic and sets the tone for the level better than any other song in the game, is the way it's presented. The song Space Fantasy is played a few times before you're able to get to this course, and Space Fantasy is basically the same track, but much softer and with fewer instruments. And as soon as you enter Battle Rock Galaxy, you hear a familiar track completely transformed by adding different instruments with very different parts. It's absolutely wonderful. I also love how it switches between Space Fantasy and the normal Battle Rock theme in different parts of the level. Oh yeah, this is a comparison review. Peanut Park is pretty cool. Really though, Super Mario Galaxy has the better soundtrack by far. Now for the level design. I really like Super Mario Sunshine's levels not only because of their graphics and presentation, but also because they're all packed with content. Each level effectively contains 14 shine sprites, 8 missions, 2 hidden shines, a 100 coin shine, and 30 blue coins, which you can trade for 1 shine for every 10 you collect. The missions give the level some progression, and the hidden shines and blue coins give you something to look for on the side. The hidden shines usually come in the form of revisiting any mission with the word secret in it and collecting 8 red coins in the secret areas. The only thing really holding Sunshine's level design back is that some missions are absolutely infuriating because of bad hit detection or just poor design, namely the Pachinko machine, the Sandbird, and the Lily Pad Shine. Although the Lily Pad Shine has other problems, namely that this is how you get to it. Looks fun, doesn't it? These aren't the only examples, but they're definitely the most frustrating examples.
Super Mario Sunshine took sort of a simpler route to that of Super Mario Galaxy. The first noticeable thing about this game is that there aren't very many levels. However, within these levels, there are quite a bit of missions. One may argue that the more levels in Galaxy allowed for more varied gameplay, however, I feel that Sunshine's levels are really fleshed out. They feel very realized, and much like Super Mario 64's levels, which are pretty memorable, Super Mario Sunshine's levels stand out. They're also pretty unique from one another, with ideas rarely repeating. With that said, the levels do follow sort of a prescriptive pattern. Each level has a red coin mission, a mission where you have to do some tricky platforming without FLUDD, and a mission where you chase down Shadow Mario. This all said though, levels still bring fresh and new ideas. Something amazing about these missions and levels is the accessibility. If your goal is to simply get to a shine, then there are probably multiple ways to do so. If you see it and go, I want to try to get it this way, then you probably can. It makes replaying the game incredibly fun, especially if you're replaying with a friend because you can learn new ways to do the same thing. When I first played, I ended up finding myself trying very intricate ways of getting to a shine, and then I looked up the right way on YouTube and found that I did it completely different. This honestly blew me away and is one reason why I've come to think that this game is as good as it is.
A lot of people don't like collecting blue coins in this game, but I personally don't mind because they're optional. However, that does lead to my biggest problem with the game, and that's that every shine sprite you earn from blue coins, the last shine sprite mission in every level, both hidden shines in every level, every 100 coin shine, and every shine sprite you can get on the overworld are all completely useless. You're only required to collect 7 shine sprites in every level and 2 shine sprites at the beginning and end of the game. This means that even though there are 120 shine sprites in the game, you can easily finish the game with 51. Super Mario Galaxy is pretty different in its level design. The levels are a lot more linear and there are only 6 or 7 stars in every level. 3 missions, 1 or 2 hidden stars, and 2 comet stars. I feel like the hidden stars just kind of get in the way and are a stupid reason to replay a mission since these levels are a lot more linear than Sunshine's. The comet stars are randomly occurring challenges such as defeating a boss without getting hit or replaying a mission with a time limit. But even though there are fewer stars per level than Sunshine, Galaxy makes up for it by having a lot more levels.
The amount of levels in Super Mario Galaxy is staggering. That said, they're not very fleshed out. They each feel sort of one note, and the levels themselves are very linear, and I feel like they're linear in a negative way too. A lot of times you do one part of the level, then get shot to the next, which makes the levels feel sort of disjointed. I'm fine with linear progression, but not when it's so blatantly forced on me like this. However, I don't think the levels are necessarily bad. Most of them are pretty solid, and they make use of the mechanics pretty well. They also do a great job at teaching the player and then escalating the challenge. When you're really looking for it, you can see in the design how much care they put into making sure that the player was never not taught. So it's a technically sound game overall. I just personally wish that we would have gotten more memorable levels. While I like levels in Super Mario Galaxy, they're nowhere near Super Mario Sunshine's in terms of being fleshed out and polished. That said, the sheer amount of number of good levels in Super Mario Galaxy still puts it at fairly even ground. You can have 7 or 8 great levels, but if your game has 15 or 16 good levels, some even being fantastic, then I think it's okay to say quantity over quality.
I'd say the level design in Galaxy is better mostly because of how many levels there are, and they're not that far behind Sunshine's aside from the fact that there aren't as many collectibles. Next we're going to talk about bosses and 100% bonuses, so spoilers maybe, I don't care. The bosses in Super Mario Sunshine aren't very good. Petey Piranha is okay the first time, but then he's reused and updated to be more frustrating. He flies away from you every time you ground pound on him, and you basically have to wait for an opportunity to hit him again. Gooper Blooper is used 3 times with virtually no updates, which honestly isn't that bad because sadly he's probably the best boss in the game. Wiggler revolves around waiting, so does Mecha Bowser. The eel is pretty interesting but also kind of odd to maneuver. King Boo? More like King New. He has a slot machine which you have to spray with water to activate. It usually lands on fruit, which is what you need in order to kill him, but if it lands on something else, it's usually a matter of waiting. And guess how you kill him after you get the fruit? Do you just throw fruit at him? No. Do you just throw peppers at him? No. You throw a pepper at him and then throw a fruit at him. Makes perfect sense and makes for a fun boss fight that doesn't have anything wrong with it. Do these things count as bosses? I'm gonna go ahead and say no. And don't even get me started on the boss of level 7. The boss of level 7 doesn't exist. Seriously, this is the only level without a boss. I have no idea why. Then there's the Bowser fight, which is decent, but kind of easy.
I don't really have much to say about the bosses for each game. I kind of have never really thought that the bosses in Super Mario Sunshine are good. They're fine though. I like that this game follows the Super Mario 64 formula of the first boss essentially teaching you the basic mechanics for the final boss. That's pretty good. But Super Mario Sunshine repeats its bosses too much, and like I said, they're not really anything special. Oh look, you're grabbing the dude's tentacles! Oh no, that's gonna leave a mark. The roller coaster fight is absolutely stunning, but kind of hard to control. It's really memorable though. Bowser's pretty good in this game though. I like bosses where you defeat the boss without touching them. Also, I think that every 3D Mario player enjoys a good hip drop, so when they combine that with Flood's rocket power-up, it makes for a great fight. Also, this fight is incredibly frantic. After you hit the hip drop, you have to scramble your way back up before you fall off, and this pressure is perfect. It's a boss fight that lays completely in your hands. Or butt.
I don't have as much to say about each individual boss in Super Mario Galaxy, except that they're much better than Sunshine's bosses.
The bosses in Super Mario Galaxy are really good. They each pretty much introduce something new, and some bosses make really good use of the environment. I think that the spin attack was maybe just slightly overused though. Just slightly. Just slightly. Okay, it's used a lot. And that kind of brings me to my next point. Bowser. Bowser's fights in this game are kind of lame. They make way too much use of the spin attack, and in comparison to so many other great boss fights, they kind of fall flat. It uses the most basic of mechanics, and I don't feel that that's how a big boss fight should be. It's the most important test of the game, and I think that Bowser simply fails in that aspect.
As for 100% bonus content, you'd think Super Mario Sunshine would give you a reason to collect more than 51 Shine Sprites, right? Wrong. Your only 100% bonus is this picture at the end of the credits screen. Super Mario Galaxy rewards you for beating the game by giving you more stars to collect, and once you collect all those stars and beat the game again, you unlock Luigi. Seriously, it lets you play the game again as a different character with slightly different controls. That's actually a good 100% bonus. At the very least, it's much better than a picture. Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy are both fantastic 3D platformers for different reasons. Super Mario Sunshine did something completely different that really worked out in its favor by making it one of the most fun 3D platformers to control, while Super Mario Galaxy completely transformed the idea of 3D platforming by adding a gravity mechanic. By that comparison, Galaxy already sounds more interesting, and that's without mentioning all the stuff that holds Sunshine back, such as the weird hit detection and how more than half of the game is pointless.
I don't feel like finding the better game between these two is necessarily difficult. While I enjoy Super Mario Sunshine much more, Super Mario Galaxy is much better. Yeah, Super Mario Sunshine personally appeals to me more, and I prefer a lot more things to that of Galaxy, but the sheer amount of content in Galaxy simply makes it better. If Sunshine simply had more levels, it would easily be a better game.
Yeah, Super Mario Galaxy is pretty clearly the better game. So anyway, special thanks to FreeXax for helping me compare these games and for making this video way too long.
Hey, you know what? Thanks for having me. And now, how do I get out of here?
So anyway, do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. My name is Octopus Joey. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and click either of the videos on screen for more. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/octojoey and follow me on social media at twitter.com/octojoey and facebook.com/octopusjoey.